Hi, I'm Tito, and this is Quarter Scale Racing 101. In this video, we're going to talk about all the different classes there are in quarter scale racing. When we talk about quarter scale racing, we're going to go ahead and talk about quarter scale racing as under the QSAC banner. Now, QSAC stands for Quarter Scale Auto Club. It's an organization that is a non-profit. It was formed by racers for racers. Its sole purpose is to write and maintain a set of rules and standards so that racers and manufacturers can build and race these cars in an even playing field. QSAC rules almost every track across the nation, whether it's in Jersey or out in California. For the most part, they adhere to QSAC rules. So when you go to a track in Alabama, say, versus Indiana or Iowa, you know you're going to be racing in the same rule set. I know in some of the big car racing and some other RC forms of racing, there's a wide variance within the rule sets. Within QSAC, within quarter scale, QSAC has managed to maintain a pretty well-defined set of rules. So with that said, QSAC has 6 classes of quarter scale racing under it. All these classes are oval tracks, circle track racing. There's the sprint class, and the sprint class uses a sprint car frame. Now that's an open wheel with a big wing. You guys seen sprint cars before, so they look like sprint cars. The sprint car frame really only pertains to the sprint car class. We'll talk and discuss about the sprint class in another video. In this video, we're going to touch on the stock car frame or the sportsman frame. So there's 5 other classes in QSAC that all utilize the sportsman frame. They're the 3 stock car classes, the same as a NASCAR with a full-bodied sedan. Those 3 classes are the Limited Sportsman, the Sportsman, and the Grand National. You also have a Super Truck class, which is actually behind me here is a truck, and they model themselves after the truck series, the NASCAR truck series, the World Camper Series. And then finally, we have an open-wheeled modified class, or the ECM, the East Coast Modified class. And those 5 classes all utilize the same frame, the same chassis, which is the Sportsman chassis. And you can see that one hanging in the wall behind me. So 6 classes, 2 different frame types. Good. With that, let's move on. The Sportsman chassis frame. Currently, there are 5 manufacturers making Sportsman chassis. In no particular order, we'll start off with the Lightning. So the Lightning is probably the oldest design still being run. It was a very popular design. As a matter of fact, it actually had a lot of other brands that were inspired by the Lightning design and followed suit. So the Lightning was developed by Terry Ray back in the early 90s, I want to say. Its ownership, the rights to build it has changed from a little bit. But Bob's Motorsports is currently manufacturing the Lightning. One of the derivatives that copied suit was a Bullseye. So Bob manufactures both the Bullseye and the Lightning. Both those cars share suspension components. They share spindles, they share trailing arms, axles, things of that nature. The frames are close. The Bullseye is built a little beefier, which makes it a little bit heavier, where the Lightning is a little lighter and not as beefy. So it's got pros and cons on either side. And between the Lightning and the Bullseye, A little bit of the front suspension geometry, the attachment points changed a little, but like I said, both cars share arm components, steering components, drivetrain components. Now that was Bob's Motorsports. He's based out of Nevada, Henderson, Nevada, just outside of Las Vegas. We'll move on to the junior quarter scale. Junior quarter scale by Freddy's Hobbies. They put out the Vision brand of cars. Originally they started with the VX1, and the VX1 was highly inspired by the Lightning. So over the years there was some updating, and the latest and greatest version is now the VX2. The VX2 had some success this past year. They were the Sportsman Grand National, they were the National Sportsman Champion at the National Championship Series event. Junior quarter scale is based out of Ohio, and junior quarter scale under the Freddy's Hobbies brand does have a web presence. So if you go to freddyshobbies.com, you're going to find that you can actually buy these online, or you can look up their available parts, etc. So moving on with another company that has an online presence is WCM. WCM is probably the oldest of the manufacturing brands still around, although their current car is actually probably one of the most updated cars. WCM is based out of Indiana now, and their line of cars currently are the Evo series. This year I believe they updated to the K2 Evo. WCM has a big presence out in the Midwest, and they have a strong presence. They, under Chris Hoag's piloting, was crowned Grand National Champion this year. So they're definitely a force to be reckoned with. TNT is the manufacturer of both the original TNT chassis and the new LT3. The TNT's been around for a while. It's had a lot of success, and its predecessor is now the LT3. Both the TNT and the LT3 were designed by Terry Ray, and they are manufactured through TNT. The TNT race cars is the manufacturer of both the original TNT race chassis and the new LT3 race chassis. The TNT and the LT3 both were designed by Terry Ray. They are manufactured and owned by Richard Coffey of TNT. And then lastly, Sonic cars. Sonic race cars are built by Dugan's Motorsports. Sonic, or Dugan's Motorsports, is based out of North Carolina, I want to say. I might have gotten that wrong. But their presence is primarily in the southeast. So right now, those are the 5 manufacturers of Sportsman chassis. Now, when we're talking about manufacturers, what exactly are they manufacturing? So you can see behind me over my shoulder on the wall, there is a TNT chassis. These cars, primarily, especially the Sportsman chassis cars, they're primarily all tubular frame design. 4130 chromoly is usually what's used. They are either TIG, MIG, or braze welded. All the suspension parts, A-arms, the steering components, the spindles, trailing arms, axles, hubs, all of those components are primarily CNC milled out of aluminum. That's all part of the chassis when you order a chassis from a manufacturer. There's different ways of getting them. You can get a complete ready-to-run car from these manufacturers, and then you've got what's known as a Racer Special. The Racer Special would be primarily everything that the manufacturer makes. So that would be the chassis, the suspension components, shocks, and the drivetrain. What you usually don't get in a Racer Special would be things that aren't manufactured by the chassis manufacturer, which is the body, the tires, the radio system. I think usually you get a gas tank thrown in there with a Racer Special, but gas tank's like 10 bucks. What else? Oh, you don't get gears usually with a Racer Special. That, in a nutshell, is who makes these cars. And we'll dig into in later videos of all the other components you're going to need. The engine, the tires, the bodies. Speaking of bodies, two of the manufacturers actually make bodies. It's WCM makes bodies and Junior Quarter Scale, or Freddy's as otherwise known. Those two are current body manufacturers. So and Mike Clark makes truck bodies, Monte Carlo bodies, and Ford Taurus bodies. He makes those in limited runs, so availability is you have to check on. All right, with that, I'll catch you guys on the next video.